Hello everyone, this is Osama Rizvi and welcome to another episode of the Monday Macro View. And in this episode, I'm going to continue to build upon the recent theme of recession. Why? Because as I will explain in the last slide, the market sentiment record, I believe the markets and the players, the observers, the analysts, all of us, we are confused because of the upcoming data. And there was a very interesting article by Oil Prices editorial department that mentioned how data from IEA and EIA, all of these are undergoing huge revisions, and it's really that can we even trust this data that comes out every week, every month? And I think this very thing can be applied to the wider global economy, and that is why today we're going to focus on Europe. And the question is Europe's recession already over? Let's dive deep in. So the first question here, the first slide was an article from CNN, exactly titled "Europe's recession may already be over," and it was almost funny. And you will see why. It's funny. So the basis of this article was that Spain reported Spain's GDP registered a 0.4% growth, just a shade weaker, as the article mentioned, in the first quarter. Germany stagnated. We will look into Germany in a detailed version, but there were some improvements. It is important to note that these improvements are being weighed against the the base case for these improvements is very bearish. So anything better than that automatically becomes an improvement. But that was the premise of it. Okay. Now we look at this slide, and you see that it shows composite output and composite new orders index. It's Eurozone's PMI, and we don't need to go into much detail to see that both are falling in tandem here, and they're both below 50 as well. 50, of course, being the indicator of expansion, while anything below 50 is symptomatic of contraction. You look at the next slide, and that is Eurozone's PMI by the output sector. So we have composite output, you have manufacturing output, then you have services activity. Once again, important to mention the real economy versus the financial economy, global markets, ETFs and whatnot. All of these tickers or this digital money or digital figures, they might show improvements in some places, but the real economy, where you hire people, where you make products, where you import and export goods and services, that is very important to see. And I have tried, we at Prime Revision have tried to focus upon these from quite a while now, and you can see that manufacturing output along with services, it is important because in many countries like US and in some European countries as well, services was a sector that was being resilient so far. Just like the labor market in the US, services was registering some growth, or things weren't as bad with services as it was with the manufacturing sector. But you see that services sector has also started to go down, still above 50, but I think it's just a tad above 50. Manufacturing is already way down than the 50 mark, and then composite output is also falling. The seasonally adjusted HCOB Eurozone Composite Index fell from 49.9, almost 50 in June, to 48.9, and it has touched the lowest level since November. And the latest reading, it signals a second consecutive monthly fall. So that is something important to note. If you look at the other slide, it also shows a Eurozone New Orders Index, which are forward-looking indices, and it speaks about what should we be expecting. Once again, services order are down, manufacturing order are down, composite new orders are down. So future output expectations and new order inflows are also very bearish, highly bearish, signaling that the recession, which according to some that I just showed you is already over, it might deepen in the coming months. Then you have Eurozone inflation. So this is interesting. Prices have changed. Prices fell at a rate prices charged by manufacturers actually fell at a rate not seen since the global financial crisis. But the reason is fall in demand. Service sector prices, inflation, and service sector, once again, inflation cooled down to a 21-month low. Overall, this was quite healthy in terms of ECB's inflationary target. But once again, it is very tricky to juggle these things. It is important to know the reason behind these falls. I know that the interest rates are going, when the interest rates go up, this is the expected outcome. But then saying that this expected outcome is not a recession, that is also problematic. So I'm seeing this as a confirmation that a recession is impending. Finally, Germany, Europe's largest economy, the economic engine, its manufacturing PMI hits a 38-month low in July at 41. And the GDP contracted 0.1% in the first quarter of 2023 and 0.4%, ladies and gentlemen, in the last quarter of 2022. So the contraction is still going on. Of course, it didn't contract 0.4%, but it was still 0.1%. You see that there is a shrinkage in demand, which has led to drop in new work orders. There is a slowdown. This slowdown is also impacting the employment, and job creation had hit its lowest, weakest level in the previous 2 years. Input cost inflation has dipped as well. We've just talked about it. But when you compare this with what I was talking about, when you compare this with the first slide, which talked about Europe's recession may already be over, you think, well, not really. And there was a reason I only focus on Europe, because we've been talking a lot about the US, China as well, but Europe was sort of untapped so far. So I thought to give it a go. Excuse me. Finally, the market sentiment tracker. You look at, so right away, the market outlook is confusion. People are confused, as I said in the beginning. So you see that the leading economic indicators by the Conference Board is showing slowdown in the economy, might be showing a recession. Different estimates, I've just not included them this week. They were there last week. So 70% to 90% chances of a recession by September or by February next year. US business inventory are still high. Eurozone manufacturing slips, as we have just seen. New orders have slipped, as we have just seen. Japan's policy tweak, and Mark really talked about it as well. It's a very important development. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to go into details of it. But that was also really important. Japan has done it. That was also bearish. Eurozone overall fall in output is there. Versus oil prices have increased. US job market is still resilient. Spain reported GDP growth. Germany showed some improvement, quote unquote. Eurozone household consumption improved. And US posted the GDP growth. So overall, you can see both the side, the recession and recovery side, are balanced. But I am tilted, based on facts and figures, towards the recessionary side. That's all from today. I'll see you all next week. Thank you.